Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for the love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be doing a show on Sister Lucia, last known Fatima seer, and because the Vatican has declared her to be venerable now, but we'll go through a timeline to show that they're not calling the real Sister Lucy venerable, but someone else. And we welcome Brother Alexis to the program.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on to discuss this interesting thing. And we are not the primary investigators here. We're reporting on an investigation that has been undertaken over the last 5 years by a group called Sister Lucia Truth, and Dr. I will not pronounce his name right, Polish, Chawanowski of something, and who's been doing this investigation with many hundreds of benefactors and supporters, and finding the best forensic experts. And basically what they've discovered from analyzing photographs, writing styles, mindsets, and voice patterns is that before 1960, the girl who saw Our Lady at Fatima, known as Lucy, or you might say Lucia, however you pronounce her name in Portuguese, I'm not sure. If you're in Italian, it'd be Lucia, is not the woman who appears in 1965 when Paul VI goes to Fatima to celebrate the feast of Our Lady Fatima. And until 2004, this other person, pretending to be Sister Lucy, spins a slightly different yarn about what happened, with full compliance of the Vatican and everyone in the Vatican, as far as we know. And so it's now conclusive evidence. All these forensic analysis concur to the same thing. These are two different women. So what we're going to discuss in the show is when and who might have been responsible for switching them, since there hasn't been much research on that. And AJ, you've done a fair amount of research. So first of all, according to how she changes the narrative, this imposter has the fingerprints of what intel agency on her?
So the intel agency is the CIA.
And what is their intel operation that she appears to be part of?
Operation Gladio.
And what's their object? What was the CIA? What's the CIA's have to do with the Catholic Church? What was the plot or plan they had beginning in the 40s, 50s?
Yeah, they were to change how we believed the Catholic faith by changing the doctrine of the faith, their doctrinal warfare program.
You did a long series on this, and what was the book that you're using for your sources? So you need to get a copy of this book, and you need to read it cover to cover if you want to figure out what's really going on in the Catholic Church in the last 100 years.
Okay, this is, I believe, part 1.
John Courtney Murray, Time, Life, and the American Proposition by David Wemhoff. He is a professor of law at Notre Dame, or at least he was, and he spent oodles of time investigating this book, and that book's 900 pages, and that's just part 1. And he gives you the documents too. And AJ has dug into this so much, he even found documents that Wemhoff didn't find, and we shared with Wemhoff. So AJ, as someone who's read that book, because a lot of people read that book and kept quiet about it, like E. Michael Jones. And other people know about the book and kept quiet about it, like I think Michael Matt, his father. So we're not going to be quiet about it. So what is the object? When was the doctrinal warfare program launched against the Catholic Church?
1953.
And you have the documents on your website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were actually declassified under George Bush. And there's a whole story about why they were declassified and when they were declassified. They're actually declassified under the reign of Pope Francis, the first part of his non-canonical reign, which is very interesting. And what are some of the big objectives they have? What actually do they want to change about the Catholic faith?
They wanted to push the American agenda that America is great, that you should, support the Republican Party, Democrat Party, immigration reforms, and
What change did they want on Freemasonry?
that it's okay, that you should not demonize them. It's just a charity. It's just a fraternity to help people.
What change did they want on the Jewish question?
That that we shouldn't convert the Jewish people. That they're still the chosen people. That the old covenant of the Jewish people is still valid.
What change did they want in Vatican policy regarding the modern state of Israel?
They helped founded it.
What change did they want regarding one world government and a one world religion?
They helped push it.
Okay, so did they want the church to modernize? Is that one of the objectives of the CIA doctrinal program?
Yeah, they wanted the church to fully modernize and no longer be the voice to the world, but wanted the world to influence the church.
And what was their agenda on questions of morality?
They changed it all up so where now priests are saying, oh, it's okay to be gay and live the lifestyle and use, live together, cohabitation, and all that.
So was it the CIA in this doctrinal warfare program that actually proposed and wrote the outline for Vatican II?
Yeah, and it was right before that the guys who wrote it up and got it put through also met with John the 23rd right in 1958 and told him their idea for a council, and they paid the Vatican a large sum of money, and then you have the whole spiel of John the 23rd. I was inspired to call this.
He saw the millions come in and inspired. Yeah. Now the CIA had already been paying the Vatican 20 million a year under Pius XII onward to funnel in through the Christian Democratic Party. So there's the big motive. There's the big picture. If all of a sudden this new Sister Ludi starts spousing CIA propaganda, well, you have to doubt. You have to put a question mark in that. Maybe they're the ones who replaced her. How does according to what you understand about the message of Fatima, AJ, what is the problem with the fact that Our Lady came down from heaven, gave the message of Fatima, and worked the largest miracle in the history of the church? Is that a problem for the CIA program?
Oh yeah. And Our Lady blasts what people are calling the heirs of Russia, but it's actually heirs of the New York bankers and the CIA who funded and started the Soviet Union, and saying there's going to be one more giant battle against the family, and
Okay, so it's pretty clear that the CIA wanted to achieve their plan that they launched in '53. They have to get rid of Sister Lucy. They have to change the message of Fatima, and you can't do that unless you change either documents, and the documents you can't change, or you change the person. So this is where the forensic investigations and there being an actual change of the person. When was the last time we know for certain that the real authentic Sister Lucy, who was the girl who saw Our Lady of Fatima, appeared in public?
Yeah, let me get this right quick. I want to make sure I get this date right here. Last day was after Christmas, 1957.
And she spoke with a father.
Father Augustine Fuentes, a Mexican priest, preparing to become postulator of Francisco and Jacinta.
Okay, so that was the thing. And now that's the end of 57. Now we're going to go through a timeline and show who might have had it done. So this is merely conjectural, but we're laying down a timeline so that other investigators who have access to more information than we do can get a perspective on what to look for. So at the beginning of 58, this is just weeks later, John the 23rd appoints an apostolic nuncio to Portugal. Who was that? And when was his appointment?
Okay. Got it.
Or maybe it was the beginning of 59.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Okay. Oh, no. Giovanni Panico.
Yeah, and when was he appointed?
Let's see here. On January 25th, 1959.
Okay, so we're talking a year and a month after the last recorded record that we know of the real Sister Lucia. And he was apostolic nuncio for decades and decades?
Till 1962.
Oh, so only 3 years. He was only apostolic nuncio for 3 years. And when he was appointed, was he already a bishop?
See here. Start that date. I think it was around this time that he becomes a bishop.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of his term as apostolic nuncio, was he promoted?
He is appointed cardinal priest in the consistory of 19 March 1962 with the Basilica of Santa Teresa de Avila as his titular church.
Titular church. Okay, so boy, he did something very important for John the 23rd to become a cardinal for just 3 years of service. So that's quite unusual, and that doesn't happen. For example, Archbishop Vigano was apostolic nuncio to the United States, which was a much more important position, and he was for 5 years, and he was not made a cardinal. Okay, so this guy was only 3 years to a minor little country, and he becomes a cardinal. And how soon after becoming a cardinal did he drop dead?
Yeah, so days.
How many days?
Let's see here. 1 month.
About a month. So he becomes a cardinal and then he drops dead. So if he had done something really great and honorable, everyone would, praise this guy. But if they made him a cardinal to keep him quiet, the best insurance would be seeing that he dies soon too. So this reminds me of MacArthur. We just did a program on MacArthur. He was given some notable award, and then he drops dead like 18 months later. No one else died who got that reward, but he did. So this is a standard Masonic tactic because they want to deflect attention that they're the ones who don't like you. So they give you a award and then they do you in. But that's just pure speculation. The next apostolic nuncio was his successor was
Maximilian von Furstenberg.
Yeah, a German nobleman from a noble family that was like this with the Nazi regime. That's kind of a strange. And he becomes a cardinal too. And he was the cardinal nuncio while Paul VI visits Fatima in 65, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So.
And then after Paul's trip back, he's made a cardinal in the consistory.
Yes. So now, if you were going to change Sister Lucia, there would be basically two ways to do it. every nun in the convent knows she's been faked out with someone else, or none of the sisters know. Now, we have no evidence about this, but you should look at what the problem is. It's a lot easier to switch her out without the nuns knowing. Because if any nun knows in a cloistered convent, they all will know in a week or two, because nuns talk. There's gossip in convents. There shouldn't be, but there is. And you just can't hide the fact that, Sister Mary Lou all of a sudden has a different nose. That doesn't happen. So it would be easier to switch her out when they didn't know. Now, Father Fuentes is the last to see her alive that we know of. What does he say of her health?
So, after he had returned to Mexico, he gave a conference in which the content of his interview with Lucy. According to Fuentes, Sister Lucy was very, very sad, very pale and emaciated.
Okay, so it's highly likely that she was in poor health. Okay, now she were to get sick, and all of a sudden the new apostolic nuncio would say, she needs to go to the hospital. I'll escort her. And they take her to the hospital and they switch her out. And then another nun is put in her place and say, oh, she's very sick. She has to stay confined to her room. No one's allowed to see her for months and months and months and months. Give her lots of food. She's gained weight because she's recovering. She's not going to look the same.
Mm-hmm.
She might be able to fool the sisters. I don't know. Okay, so that's my personal conjecture. It could only be done by someone with a lot of authority. The other thing is all the nuns could have been put under a papal oath of obedience not to talk about what happened and to die with their secret. That is possible too. Okay, so did Our Lady warn anyone that Sister Lucia was in trouble? And who did she warn and when was this?
Yeah, so it was to Jacinta that Lucy was in grave danger.
If she remained in what town?
Fatima.
Okay, so this was prophesized, it was warned, people knew about it. And so she's in her life, she's going to be moved to 3 different places. As a side, the 2 apostolic nuncios we just mentioned both had co-consecrators who were at Mafia of St. Gallen, okay, Rampolla House. So they're definitely of the Masonic alignment. Sister Lucia is sent to 3 towns. The first town she's sent to is Vilar, study with the Dorothean sisters. Then she's at Pontevedra, which is Dorothean convent. She's at Tuy, which is a Dorothean convent. Then she comes back in was it 42 or 45 or 48? For 2 days to Fatima, and all of a sudden she wants to become a Carmelite nun. And she needs permission to transfer to the Carmel. And who gives her that permission?
So Pope Pius XII personally intervened on Lucy's behalf. In 1948, she received written approval of her request, signed by Deputy Secretary of State Montini.
Montini. Yeah, Montini, you know him by his papal name, Paul VI. And Montini is a known sodomite. He was blackmailed by the KGB. They had his list of his lovers. And he gave to the KGB a list of all the Catholic priests in Russia who were then hunted down by the KGB and murdered. So he was a real piece of work. People don't like Jorge Mario Bergoglio. Paul VI was probably worse because Bergoglio only handed over 2 priests and 6 lay people. And the priests weren't murdered. They were just tortured. The lay people were thrown out of airplanes. But Paul VI handed over a list of dozens and they were all murdered. So that's Paul VI. And Paul VI ends up being Pope. So maybe he knew something. But we do know that the first apostolic nuncio was actually one of the cardinals in the conclave that elected Paul VI. I'm not saying he voted for him, who knows. But the conclave that elects Paul VI has There's a lot of been controversies, the same as the one that elected John the 23rd. There's been controversies that the CIA had a hand in that, and we did a show on that, and you could put that in the program links. That doesn't mean the elections are invalid, but you can't exclude that the CIA got the man they wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. And that doesn't make an election valid. You can bribe cardinals to get the person you want to be pope, and the election will still be valid. Amazingly enough, that's the way the church laws work. Because after the fact, how could you prove you bribed, and all things like that. So, a lot of people got promoted with this change.
So those towns where she was moved to.
Oh yeah, yes. There's a town right kind of in between all of them.
Yeah, on the Sister Lucy Truth, they also took the audio of the fake Sister Lucy to figure out where the heck she's from. She is from a city 100 miles to the north from Fatima, and that is Pamplona. And each of the three towns, this town of Pamplona is right dead in the center of all three.
Okay, so wherever Sister Lucy was before she came back to Fatima, it's possible that someone from this town could have visited her to get her to know her. And so I don't think that a woman who didn't have the vocation to be a nun could fake being in a Carmelite convent for years and years and not go crazy and come out. I don't think that's possible. But what if this was a Dorothean sister who was a classmate of Sister Lucy, knew how she behaved, heard her talk for years and years, knew her behavior and comportment, and then when she gets sick and is rushed off to a hospital from Fatima, the imposter returns from the hospital. Okay, that's just my working theory. I think that would be the easiest way to pull it off. And she would need permission of the bishop to leave the convent and go to the hospital. And well, if the apostolic nuncio knew about it or had to take care of everything, because somewhere there is a document saying that some nun transferred to the Carmel at Fatima. She was either a novice there already, and I doubt it, or she was imported from another convent, and then she would have had to been dispensed and transferred. So if you're looking for a document in the Vatican Archives, you see what nuns were transferred to the Carmelite convent sometime around 1960, or at least before 65. And I tend to think it's going to be before 62 because it's this first apostolic nuncio that pulls the thing off. That's the second one that keeps quiet about it, and maybe even gets her coached so that she can pretend to be Sister Lucy. Did the CIA or the globalists or the Freemasons have systems control already in Portugal? I mean, did the Rothschilds have control of the bank in Portugal?
Okay, yeah. So by 1943, Portugal itself joined the Bank of International Settlements during World War II.
And who controls that bank?
Rothschilds.
Okay, so that means basically they control the government.
And then
did this Gladio, when did Gladio set up in Portugal?
So 3 years later, Jose Maria Escrivá crosses the border from Spain to set up Opus Dei in Portugal. Then we get to put that here.
And Opus Dei is a Gladio operation. At least it's funded by Gladio.
Yeah.
We've already discussed that in other programs.
Then 1965, the CIA established Agente Press, which is a stay-behind unit under the command of Captain Yves Guérin-Sec. And then in 1970, the P2 Lodge sets up a chapter in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
In 75-80, under William Casey, the CIA is using drug running routes to set up a drug running route through Portugal.
Okay. And as I have reported it from Rome before, if you trace back the Mafia St. Gallen, which is the group that got Bergoglio into power, they all go back through Rampolla di Tindaro, whose friends and allies are the ones who co-consecrated these two nuncios. And from Rampolla di Tindaro, they go back to a bishop with the royal family of the Kingdom of Portugal in the 1700s, early 1700s, who was bishop of the region where Fatima is found. So the Masonic infiltration of the church begins in the diocese that today is called Fatima, okay, in that region, okay. So Our Lady coming to Fatima to tell us about problems in the church, you can't exclude that this has nothing to do with Bergoglio's strange behavior and what's going on in the church right now, okay? There's all ties together. And that kind of implies that the hand behind getting Lucy was the Masonic Lodge. Now, is the CIA have any connection to the Freemasonry?
Oh, yeah. Skull and Bones Lodge of Yale University.
And they're a filial lodge of what lodge?
The lodge in Germany.
Yeah, the Prussian Lodge of Berlin, which isn't really Prussian, it's really English Franco Lodge. It was the third biggest Masonic lodge in Berlin under Kaiser William. So there's a lot of information in this program we've just given you. If you want to start an investigation, share with your friends in Portugal and start asking questions. My first question to people in Portugal is, when did these apostolic nuncios visit the convent in Fatima? On what days? Because the plot has to take place pretty much after they visit.
Mm-hmm.
Have any records of their travels? Did Sister Lucy ever get taken to a hospital after December of 1957? Now, I can only add one thing of what I'm a witness of, is that when this talk about Sister Lucy being replaced first hit social media in 2017, 2018, I went to the website of the Order of Carmel in Rome and found their page on necrology, which is a list of all the dead friars and nuns and what day they died. And I found Sister Lucy listed as dead. And it was 1958. And I didn't write down the day or something. I wrote the webmaster, naive me, and I said, is that an error? And he says, oh, yes, that's an error. And then it disappeared. So I'm a witness to that. So she did die before 1960. The order knows it, and they have records that she did die. So that kind of implies, now they could have hid that death from the nuns, because if they did the replacement, they would have known she died, but they reported it to the order in Rome. And that means the nuncio probably had a hand in it, because how could you conceal the death in the convent and yet report it to Rome?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it right here, folks. I don't want to overload you. But everything's linked, and we'll add some of our shows on this. But yeah, start digging.
I think this is a very important investigation that we should all pay attention to, because if it can be proven and established that Sister Lucia was switched out with connivance of Vatican officials like Paul VI, this will tear down the entire Vatican II narrative as being of the Holy Spirit, and we'll see that our church has been taken control of by Masonic forces even before the council, who had absolutely no morality and are opposed to Our Lady of Fatima. That means opposed to God's plans for salvation. And that means that all the changes of Vatican II and consequent have to be thrown out because they're not of God, they're of the Masonic Lodge. This is a very, very important investigation. This one case will bring down the entire structure of lies. And that's why everyone, if you can do any kind of research on this, do it. If you know people in Portugal, you know people in Rome, you know people in the Order of Carmel, get to it, contact Sister, the Lucy Truth site, AJ will give you the link, and help them with financings to do further investigations. They're only looking at forensic evidence about the woman being different. They haven't done what we've just did. It's who could have switched her out and how could it have been done? Someone knows it. Someone in Portugal knows these things, and that's what is the next line of investigation.
This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Day as full.
Day as well.